Hello everyone. Today is a video on sequencing, reflections, and translations. This is continuing from the previous video where we sequenced translations. Remember, sequencing is just simply putting more than one reflection or translation or rotation together in one problem. Alright, so today we're gonna do some reflections and translations and hook them together. The first one here is reflecting this angle that we have drawn over the y-axis, and then we're going to reflect it over the y-axis again. Alright, now a little review here. Remember this on our coordinate plane. This is the x-axis and this is the y-axis going vertical. We want to take this angle and we're going to reflect it over the y-axis. So mentally, the first thing I'm thinking is it's going to end up in quadrant 1. Okay, remember this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, down here is 3, and over here is 4. Okay, so I'm taking an angle from quadrant 2, and I'm going to reflect it over the y-axis. We're going to end up in quadrant 1. The first thing I'm going to do is label some of these points here. This is, if I count, it goes to the left 7 and goes up 8. So this is -7, 8. This point down here, right here, I'm going to put a little dot there. This is the point -3, 1. And this point right here is the point 1, 4. Okay, so I've got those all labeled. Now, if you remember from the previous packet, we had certain rules for reflecting over the x-axis and the y-axis. And the y-axis was very easy. Whatever point you start out with, whatever x, y you start out with, all it does is turn the x-coordinate, which is the first one, it just turns it opposite. Alright, so if it starts as a negative, it ends up as a positive, and if it starts as a positive, it ends up as a negative. So as a very quick example, if I start out with the point 5, 6, and I reflect it over the y-axis, it simply turns it to -5, 6. Okay, so really, when I go to do this one over here, I can do this without even graphing them. I can always count, right? I can take this one, and we said if you count straight to the y-axis and then count the same number of points over, then you're at the point where you've reflected to. But I can list them over here. If I start with -7, 8, then it's going to reflect to 7, 8. All right, and 1, 4, well, that's a -1. Gotta label that a -1. Probably said it and didn't label it as such. Alright, would reflect to 1, 4. Okay, and this one down here, -3, 1, would reflect to 3, 1. Alright, so I've got them listed over here, and sometimes that's a good thing to do. Just list them before you graph them. So now I just put them on here. So I go over 7 and I go up 8, and that is my new point. So let's start labeling them. Let's turn my pen blue here, and I'm going to call this one A, and this one B, and this one C. So that makes this one A prime, because this is the image of A. Okay, and this one is going to be 1, 4. So that is right here, and that is the image of C. So this is C prime, and this last one here is going to be over at 3, 1. Alright, and that is going to be B prime. So I can again try to draw a real straight line here, do the best I can of this, and connect. Oops, going a little bit off there. Alright, so I can connect there. And again, notice the angle is the same size, it's the same shape, because reflections do not change the shape or size, but it did change the orientation. It's kind of, you know, this little line segment here is pointing the other way, and same thing with this long line segment. It's changed the orientation. Alright, so we've done this first part, okay, and we've got an image over here of this angle. Well, now it says reflect the image across the y-axis again. Alright, well, let me draw a little line over here. Now I'm starting with these. Okay, I'm going to put these in a little box here. I'm starting with those, and let's change to another color, and I can put these down here. That's 3, 1. And what are they going to turn into? What's going to be the image of these? Well, I'm reflecting over the y-axis again, and I simply follow my rule over here, which means change the x to the opposite and leave the y all by itself. Well, look what happens. It turns into -7, 8, and this turns into -1, 4, and this turns into -3, 1. Well, look what happened. They've turned into the same points that I started with. If I graph each one of those, they've turned back into the same point. So A double prime is the same point as A, and B double prime is the same point as B, and C double prime is the same point as C was. So it looks like if I reflect over the y-axis and then I reflect that image over the y-axis again, well, that image is really what I started with. And if you think about it, that kind of makes sense, because you've just undone what you just did up here. Okay, so at the bottom of your note packet on that first page, it says, what do you notice after performing the two reflections? Well, what we notice is that a reflection over the y-axis and then a reflection over the y-axis again gives you the same shape, the original shape. Alright, and that's going to be true if we do it over the x-axis. If you reflect over the x-axis, get an image, and then reflect over the x-axis again, you're mapping back to that original figure. Okay, so that's a conclusion that we can make. Alrighty, now let's jump over to exercise 2. Let me get rid of this guy and turn this one on. Now this one's a little different. It says now let's do two separate sequences. Alright, first on the left coordinate plane, that's going to be this one right here, we're going to reflect over the x-axis and then translate it along the vector. Alright, so let's put down our rule for reflecting over the x-axis. Alright, and if you remember, it's very similar to reflecting over the y-axis, but instead this one changes the y-coordinate to be opposite. Alright, so here's your rule for reflecting over the x-axis. If we want to do a quick example here, if I started with the point -4, -5, then it's going to leave the x-coordinate the same, and it's going to take the opposite or negate that y-coordinate, so it would turn into that coordinate there. Alright, so let's try this one. I'm going to go over and label this point. This is the point -8, -1. Alright, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to label this, because it's going to get really messy. I'm going to label this off of the chart here. I'm going to label this A, and let me make that an A. Okay, I'm going to label this one B. I'm going to label this one C. And let me go up on top here and actually write what the coordinates are right up here. That's -8, -1, and B is -8, I think I might have to count this one out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5. And point C is negative 5, negative 5. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is I want to reflect them over the x-axis. So again, mentally I'm thinking, okay, where is this going to go? It's going to reflect over the x-axis, which is this horizontal one. It's going to reflect up into quadrant 2. Alright, so let's just do the reflection according to the rule. Alright, which means it changes the x-coordinate just to be the same, but it changes the y-coordinate to be opposite. Alright, so these x-coordinates are the same, but the y-coordinate, if it's negative, it starts negative, it turns positive, and if it's positive, it turns negative. So there's the points that I end up with as the image of each one of those. So I'm going to label them with primes. So we're going to negative 8, 1. Okay, and that's going to be A prime. And then negative 8, 5 is going to be B prime. Alrighty, and negative 5, positive 5 is going to be right there. That's going to be C prime. Okay, and we'll connect those with a line. Not the straightest, but it gets the point across. Okay, and again, the shape stayed the same, the size stayed the same, but it changed the orientation. Now we want to translate it along this vector. Well, if I just count how many places I moved, if I start here, I go 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the right. So basically, what they're doing with these points is we're doing a translation, and it's moving 4 places to the right, and it's not moving up and down at all. So I'm doing a translation of 4, 0 on each one of these points. Well, if I take each one of these points and I simply count 1, 2, 3, 4, then basically what I'm doing is adding 4 to each one of these x-coordinates. Okay, if you want to count them, go ahead and count them. I'm just going to do it mathematically up here. It turns into negative 4, 1, and negative 4, 5, and negative 1, 5. Alright, so if I move these over, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to move right over to there. And that is going to be moving right over to there. And negative 1, 5 is my other one. So this would be B double prime. This is C double prime. And this is A double prime. Okay, and again, I can connect them. And voila. Alright, so again, didn't change the size, didn't change the shape, it just slid it over. I'll change my pen here, just slid it, translated it that way 4 units. Okay? Now, the second example we want to do in this exercise is on the right coordinate plane, so over here, we're going to translate along the vector. Notice the vector in this one is the same as the vector in that one, and then reflect it over the x-axis. So what we want to find out is, does it matter in which order we do the transformation? Okay, so let's see what happens here. Let me take these all out. Okay, so I kind of skipped ahead right here, and I put down, these are the points that we're starting with. Okay, those are the same points we started in the previous one, and I did a translation of 4, 0, which if I count my vector, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I did a translation of 4, 0, and basically what I did here is I added 4 to each one of those x-coordinates. So if I go ahead and graph those, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's right there, and this one goes here, and this one goes 1, 2, 3, 4 right to here. Okay, and I connect those, and that's going to be A prime, and this one is B prime, and this one is C prime. Okay? So then I want to take these points and I want to do a reflection. Well, let's turn over to green here, and if I reflect it over the x-axis, it's a pretty weak arrow right there, I'll make that a little better. If I reflect it over the x-axis, I just follow my rule right here, and I take the x and y, and the x stays the same, and the y changes to the opposite. So negative 4, comma 1, and this is negative 4, comma 5, and this one's going to be negative 1, comma 5 again. That's after the reflection. So let's graph those, and I'm going to go ahead and graph those. Negative 4, comma 1 would be right there. Negative 4, comma 5 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be right there. And negative 1, comma 5 is right there. So this is A double prime. Here's B double prime. And here's C double prime. And then I just connect the dots. And so what we want to see is, did it matter in which direction or which order that I did the reflection and translation, that I did the sequence? Alright, so if I compare these two, it looks like I ended up with the same point. So in this case, does reflecting then translating always give you the same outcome? Well, we did one example, and usually in math you don't want to just do one example and say, well, it's always the case. But in this case, where you are combining reflecting and translating, it didn't matter, right? We ended up with the same image at the end for A, B, and C double prime. So in this case, it did not matter. Okay guys, here is example 3, or exercise 3. Now I went ahead and already labeled the points here, A, B, and C, and I've got them written down here. Here is our rules, because this one, they want us to reflect over the x-axis first, okay, right here, and then reflect over the y-axis. So again, we're sequencing two reflections together. And I'm just going to follow my rules right here. First, I'm going to reflect over the x-axis, which is this second one down here, which turns the y-coordinate to be the opposite. So this one's going to turn into 1, comma negative 6. B prime is going to be 5, comma negative 1. And C prime is going to be 10, comma negative 1. Alright, so I jump over here and reflect those and graph those, and this is going to be A prime, and that's not the right point. What am I doing? Take that off of there. Oops. A prime is going to be 1, comma negative 6, which is going to be down here. I'm reflecting over the x-axis, not the y-axis. Okay, so that's A prime. And B prime is going to be 5, negative 1, which is right here. Okay, and C prime is 10, negative 1, which is right there. Okay. Okay, so that's not too bad. Again, same size, same shape, but it just changed the orientation of the triangle. So I'm going to switch over to green here, and then I'm going to do the reflection over the y-axis. Alright, and according to my rule, same thing as before, the x-coordinate changes to the opposite. So I've got A double prime is going to be negative 1, negative 6. B double prime is going to be negative 5, negative 1. And C double prime is going to be negative 10, negative 1. Alright, so let's go over and graph those. Negative 1, negative 6 is right here. That's A double prime. Negative 5, negative 1 is going to be right here. That's going to be B double prime. And C double prime is negative 10, -1, which is right there. And then I connect those a little better. That one's not bad. And that one is not good at all. And there we go. So there's the reflection of the reflection, and so here's the original in black. The red is the first image, and the green is the second image. Again, using these rules according to what axis I'm reflecting on. So hopefully that made sense for you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.